Good day and welcome to another Mechabellum video. This is the second part of a guide. If you've missed the first part, you can check the link in the description or click the annotation at the top. Last time we talked about general mechanics, how to buy units, the different abilities in the game, such as the sentry missile and the shield, and this time we're going to be going more in depth about the units. There's a lot to cover, so let's jump in the game. When you jump into the game, you're overwhelmed with a plethora of options. There are many different units, and how are you supposed to know which one to pick? When you go over a unit, there's a tiny bit of information at the top which explains what the unit does in general. The cost is also mentioned, and the tech you have equipped on that unit at that time. First up is the marksman. This is a high damage single shot unit that is bad against a horde of small units, but very good against single targets that have a lot of HP. Second are the fangs, 18 of them in a unit. They don't do anything particularly well, but they can be upgraded to become very scary. Next up, we have the crawlers. 24 of these bad boys in a unit. They are small, very fast, and they can deal out damage when they're upgraded, but mainly they are used often to protect more important units from big damage dealers such as the marksman. Then we have the arclight. This is again a single unit, but unlike the marksman, it doesn't deal massive damage to a single target. It actually deals good damage to a group of targets around its target. It has an AoE effect, ideal for taking out groups of crawlers or fangs. Next up is the rhino. This is a melee unit, runs very fast and has saw blades for hands and can shoot up, but it deals very big damage and can tank a lot if upgraded well, and it can be very useful on flanks. Next up is our first flying unit of the game. This is the wasps. This is a horde of units, so you have 12 of them in a single unit, and they have quite small range, don't deal massive damage, but they can be a nuisance to deal with for your opponent if they don't have a lot of anti-air. Next up, we have the mustangs. A very fast unit of 12 mustangs. It doesn't deal massive damage, but it's a very good all-round useful unit to have and can deal with a lot of different stuff if upgraded to your needs. Another very quick unit are the steel balls. They come with 4 units and they need to get up close to an enemy as they use lasers. These lasers ramp up in damage the longer they target the same enemy, so their ideal target is a giant unit that has a lot of HP, so they can just keep ramping up that damage and melt through them. They are hindered by smaller units like crawlers or fangs. On to the storm crawlers, one of my favorite units in the game so far. This is your basic artillery unit. It can obviously only shoot ground, and it does deal a lot of massive damage, but especially against slow units. Fast units like the crawlers, the mustangs or the rhino can just outrun the missiles, making them a lot less useful. Speaking of slow units, here we have the sledgehammers. These are your basic tank units. They come with 5 units. They can take a lot of damage, but they can also deal quite a bit of damage. Next up is our second aerial unit of the game. Basically, the Phoenix is a flying marksman in that it deals massive damage in slow shots to preferably high HP targets. So again, these are good against targets with massive HP, but they are bogged down by crawlers or fangs as they shoot so slowly. The next unit is a very special one. This is the hacker. It basically does as the name suggests. It controls or takes control of your enemy's units slowly by filling up a bar. Once it's full, it's yours, and that unit joins your side. It can be very good in the right circumstance, but do keep in mind these can't target air units. On to the last 4 of our unit list, and these are all giant units. First off, we have the Vulcan. This is basically a giant walking flamethrower with a lot of HP. And as you might think, this guy is great at dealing with hordes of enemies that have low HP, like the fangs or the crawlers are ideal targets. Even the mustangs, he can just melt right through them. Now the next giant is the Fortress, a beacon of health. The unit is designed to take on a lot of damage while protecting your more important units. He deals also a massive amount of damage if he can get in range to a single target. There's barely any splash damage. There's not none, but it's not much. And it's very bad against many small units as it will take a long time for him to kill those small units. Also, he can shoot up. The following giant unit is a giant killer. The melting point has also a laser ability similar to the steel balls, as in the longer it targets the same target, the more damage it will do. So if you can get a melting point to target another giant unit, it can just melt right through it very, very quickly. It can shoot up though, this one. And last but not least, we have our third and also last aerial giant unit. This is the Overlord. This is basically a flying warship, also with quite a lot of HP, not as much as the other 3 units. It has the advantage of also flying, but it shoots missiles, deals massive AoE damage from afar, and can generally be a very, very good pick to take out other units on the ground that have a lot of HP, where it remains untouched by those targets. I'm talking about sledgehammers, steel balls, stormcallers. These all can shoot up and can't even be upgraded to shoot up. The Overlord makes for a perfect counter to that. Now that you know what units exist, let's go over what units work against what units and how to counter your opponent's units, as this is basically the core of Mechabellum. I have made a chart that tries to describe how to counter units. At the top, you have what units your opponent has that is giving you trouble. For example, a fortress. You can then look in this column below the fortress to see what counters the fortress. For example, marksmen are good against the fortress because they are dealing high amounts of damage against it. Fangs, you may say, well, Fangs is not going to kill a fortress. But keep in mind that although it's not particularly a 1v1 scenario, I have kept in mind here. Another example might be, looking at the crawlers again, crawlers counter overlords in this chart. And this is obviously not because it can kill the overlord, it can't even reach it, but it can prove to be a great distraction when you need it to be, as it can outrun a lot of these missiles for a long time, while your other more important units that can actually deal with the overlord are protected from its barrages. Also keep in mind that I have not considered any of the upgrades in this chart. Everything that is listed here on both sides is without any special item equipped or a particular tech upgrade. Because if I would do that, it would be much too chaotic, and I don't know how I would try to fit that in one chart while remaining as clear as it can be. That's why I chose not to do that and just go for, if there's a hacker in your enemy's side, you can take a marksman, as it can shoot it from afar before getting hacked. You can get some fangs, as those take a lot of time to hack. It doesn't necessarily mean just putting down one marksman when your opponent is going full hacker will win you the game also. This is definitely not the case, as Mechabellum is a complex game of countering units, but not only countering units just by putting a single unit down when it looks like it's a good counter. The positioning is also very, very important. If you want to try and encounter Mustangs, for example, and you get an Arclight, but there's Stormcallers behind the Arclight, the Stormcallers will probably kill the Arclight before you can even get to the Mustangs. Positioning is so important in this game, and that's something that you cannot teach someone. You just have to experience it. You need to get in there, try and figure out what works for you, try different stuff. Don't be afraid to experiment, because right now the game is in a very, very nice spot where there's no defined meta that defines every game. There's no straight fire win every game strategy, as everyone is still experimenting a lot. But that's also what makes Mechabellum so much fun, is there's no way that this always is the same outcome. There's a lot of techs, there's a lot of different variables. Also, your commander makes a lot of difference too. So the least I can hope for is that this chart helps you to... I can only hope that this chart and this video helps you to become a better Mechabellum player. There's a lot of practice involved in trying to understand the different relations between the different techs, the different units, the different commanders, when to use a sentry missile, when to use a shield, and anticipating your opponent's choices in the reinforcements. There's so much that comes from this game. There's so much depth. I can't explain it all to you. You need to experience it. You need to just go out there, experiment, try some games, and see what works for you. Because I dislike using steel balls while other people use it a lot. They use steel balls and fangs only. They swear by it. But you need to find out what's working for you and how you can improve this game. And I hope you learned something at least today from this video. So if you did, please remember to leave a like, subscribe if you want to see some more Mechabellum videos, and comment to let me know what you think is wrong in this chart, because I'm very curious. And I hope I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.